welcome back to Saturday Morning Live and good morning. I have to say, I'm really enjoying that little sting there, Miriam. It's quite exciting, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's great to have a new show.
It is. We're enjoying being here, and thank you very much for getting in touch on your say. Plenty to read out later. But before we get into that, should rich people fly less so poor families can still take summer holidays? That's what one net zero SAR thinks.
Yes, Emma Pinchbeck, who is the new chief executive of the Climate Change Committee, wants frequent flyers to be taxed more highly than those who fly just once a year, therefore discouraging richer travellers from flying as much while not punishing the poor.
So is that plan prudent or patronising? And joining us now to discuss this is the head of policy at the Global Warming Policy Foundation, Harry Wilkinson, and the managing director of Green Oil UK, Simon Nash. I'll start with you, Harry. What's your take on this debate? I mean, is this not an example of people trying to dictate and order people away from having fun with their hard-earned cash?
Well, this is the latest absolutist and, frankly, miserablest suggestion from the Committee on Climate Change. You know, rich people may not be popular all the time, but those business links, that travel, actually has enormous economic benefits for the UK. We need to be an interconnected country that's trading with the rest of the world. So if we put up barriers and make it more expensive for the world's business leaders to travel to the UK, it's not going to help our economic situation. And quite frankly, we shouldn't be in the business of rationing flights at all. Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, is talking about expanding Heathrow Airport, Luton Airport, all this airport expansion. And it's hard to see how that drive goes hand in hand with, Ed Miliband, who's likely to be, pushing for this to be rationed.
And Simon, that is what this is, isn't it? It's an attempt to impose rationing on something that is sold on the free market. I mean, this is going to end in disaster, either ridiculously high prices, airlines are going out of business. I mean, it's just a completely absurd approach.
I think it's actually a great approach if we believe that net zero is a goal that we should achieve. Millions of people around the world live in food insecurity, partly because of climate change, 400,000 deaths per year because of climate change. And of course, we've seen the extreme weather events. This is having an impact on human beings like you and I right now. And if you believe that you should love your neighbour globally, it's important to fly a bit less. It's risen from about 2% of UK emissions to around 8% in a decade.
But that's because overall emissions have gone down. So flying is by definition a higher proportion of that. So that's quite a misleading way to put it.
I don't think that's true. Flying has increased in the last 10 years and certainly the last 20 years. If you look at British seaside towns, which were thriving holiday resorts 30 years ago, they are now largely closed and decrepit because people are flying more overseas. And we also have to ask the question, do we really want to turn London into a car park for foreign aeroplanes? The economic impact of flying, I think, is actually quite dubious. It largely employs overseas workers, low-paid jobs, and I think the air pollution impacts locally are not good for Londoners or people in the UK. We should be supporting British tourism. And I think a flight tax on maybe flying beyond your third flight a year, and that could subsidise poorer travellers, and maybe even train travel. I've travelled around Europe by train. It's about a third more expensive. And I've been to Ibiza and Germany and other countries by train. And as environmentalists, we're not saying that no one should ever fly, but the truth is, only 20% of the world's population are even rich enough to fly. 52% of people in the UK don't fly every year because they're too poor, they choose not to. So it's not about restricting everyone with a blanket tax, which wouldn't be good. Maybe, you all know people that sort of fly several times a year and they enjoy life and they fly for very short trips, even to Scotland or weekend breaks. Well, yeah, maybe they could be taxed a bit more. That would go towards our net zero contribution in carbon offsetting perhaps, or subsidising greener forms of transport. This would be great for the economy. And again, aviation, it relies on imported fossil fuels, which is not good.
Simon, I've got to bring in Harry here. I've got to bring in Harry here because you're suggesting several things, but I thought the first one was most interesting, this idea that the patriotic thing to do is to not fly abroad, but instead to perhaps take a train on holiday in Britain instead. Harry, are you going to do your patriotic duty and refuse to fly overseas to save the environment and spend more of your cash in England?
Well, I'm afraid it's not patriotic. I mean, I absolutely support the British tourist industry and I want to see that thrive. But, people should be allowed to go on holiday where they want to go on holiday. This is absurd to be talking about the government telling people where they should go on holiday or not. This is not going to help the economy. And it's actual GDP growth that is so important to people, the poorest people, because they've felt the burden of the fact that we've had no growth in real terms per capita GDP over the last decade or more. People are really suffering, and just having an extra burden on the economy is going to hit the poorest hardest. It's not going to help the poorest just to be hurting rich people for the sake of it. And when we look at climate impacts globally, the world is actually seeing far fewer deaths from extreme weather than it was 100 years ago. This has been coming down massively because of the economic growth. That's partly thanks to the fossil fuels which have powered that growth. So this kind of restriction, turning inwards, becoming an isolationist country that doesn't fly around the world, that imposes taxes on everything, it's a road backwards. And it's the poor who will suffer most from this backwards approach.
I mean, actually, people in the UK fly more than the majority of people in the world and even Europe, partly because we have bad weather. But I think it's not inhibitive to the economy. We need green growth, not this endless fossil fuel driven, dirty aeroplane growth. It can't go on forever. We've got Luton expanding, Heathrow's supposed to be expanding. I hope you'll join me behind the barricades at Climate Camp when that comes back. We successfully stopped a third runway at Heathrow. We protected those beautiful British villages from the impacts of aviation there. And it's a great shame that people just want to spend all their money to fly out of our great nation. I don't think that's good for the British economy. Support British tourism, and we've got a great mountain bike industry in Wales and Scotland, some great sporting industries in these great parts of the UK, and you can get there by train in a matter of hours. I mean, it's a great shame that HS2, big betrayal by the environmental movement, in my opinion, in not supporting HS2, and that's why the government are trying to promote airport expansion as the kind of the B plan. We could have done what Japan did and had great, clean bullet trains, great for the economy, great for
Simon,
engineering.
I think we're going to have to leave it there. Simon Nash, Harry Wilkinson, thank you so much for your time. I mean, isn't this just the fallacy of net zero? Let's just offshore all our emissions to China and then look like we're lowering our...
Yeah, I have to say, if you buy a house in a village by Heathrow Airport and you're upset about the impact of aviation, might I suggest you've perhaps bought a house in the wrong place?
This is the green oil massive rush. Are you fed up of bending over whilst cleaning your bike? Got a bad back? Green oil massive brush is the answer. It's nearly ½ metre long. So, you can clean your bike easily while standing upright. It's safe on carbon fibre and all paintwork types. It works with some of the world's longest bristles at 7 centimetres. You can even throw it off a canal bridge. It also floats. What's the difference between using plastic bike brushes on your bike and just scraping microplastics straight into the environment? Massive Brush is plastic free, with sustainably sourced beechwood handle and plant fibre bristles. Whether you're a road racer or a mountain biker. Deforestation is a huge global issue.